Hi, I'm Catherine and I'm going to be your teacher for today. Here at PrimePass, we have put together some really easy and simple painting tutorials for you to create a masterpiece in the comfort of your own home. So make yourself comfortable, pour yourself a drink, put on some music, and let's get ready to get creative. In your PrimePass pack, you will find 2 sets of acrylic paint tubes. You'll find 4 paintbrushes, 2 large brushes and 2 smaller brushes. You'll have your 3 canvases and you'll have your painting palette for you to mix your colours onto. You're also going to need a cup of water, a kitchen sponge and some tissues. In this tutorial, we're going to be painting palm trees in the sunset. So it's all about bringing in some lovely cool blues and purples that we're going to blend together, as well as pops of yellow for our really bright sun. So it's all about creating a really lovely, peaceful landscape. So let's get started with this painting. For our palm trees painting, we're going to be using cadmium yellow, magenta, blue, white, purple and black. So I'm just going to bring in my canvas and we can start painting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our large paintbrush and I'm just going to dip it into my water. And I'm just going to dry my brush in my tissue. And I'm going to start off by taking some blue paint and I'm going to get quite a lot of paint on my brush. So I'm going to kind of almost scoop it just a little bit. And I'm going to start at the top of the canvas and I'm going to do kind of very free strokes, left to right, left to right. And then I'm going to dip into the magenta. And again, I'm going to take quite a lot of paint. And I'm going to add that underneath the blue. And I'm going to use those same kind of free strokes again. Left to right, left to right. Keep your wrist really loose so we can create really lovely free strokes. And then I'm going to bring it up slightly into the blue. And I'm not going to push too hard, I'm going to keep it quite light. And we're slowly going to blend the 2 colours together. Okay, I'm just going to rinse off my brush in the water. And dry it in my tissue. And then I'm going to dip back into the blue. Get lots of paint on there. And I'm going to add this blue underneath the magenta. Okay, I'm just going to wash off my brush in my water. And next I'm going to be dipping into the white. So with the white, we're going to start to slowly blend upwards into the blue. So I'm just going to wash off my brush in my water, and then we're going to bring in a little bit of magenta. So I'm just scooping up some white and I'm going to add that over the top. All right, okay, so when you're happy with your sky, we're going to wait for this to dry and then we're going to paint in the sea at the bottom. Okay, so now we're ready to paint the sea. I'm going to rinse off my brush in my water. And dry it in my tissue. And I'm going to dip my brush into the white. I'm going to take quite a lot of paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the bottom of the canvas. So all this blank space, I'm going to cover it with white so we can do some blending over the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just straighten that line for our sea very carefully, just to kind of define it a little bit more. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush in my water. So we're ready to add the blue. So I'm going to take some blue and I'm going to add this to the bottom of the canvas and I'm going to kind of work my way up. So I'm going to apply it to the bottom, so on top of that white that we just painted. And I'm going to bring it upwards. So I'm going to do some nice kind of loose, free strokes. Okay, so there we have our sea. I'm just going to rinse off my brush. Okay, so now we're going to let our painting dry before we add in the nice yellow sun. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw in our sun. So what I'm going to use is, I'm going to use a bottle lid, and this is like the perfect size for your sun, but you can use whatever kind of circular object that you may have at home, and you're welcome to kind of make your sun even bigger if you want to. But I'm going to use a bottle lid, and I'm going to place it kind of on the line of my sea, but I'm going to have it just kind of over halfway. So it's still slightly bigger. And then with my pencil, very gently, not too hard, I'm going to draw around my bottle top. Because if we press too hard, then we'll kind of still see the pencil line underneath the yellow. So we want it to be kind of nice and delicate. So when you're happy with your sun shape, I'm going to take my small paintbrush and I'm going to mix a nice light yellow for our sun. So I'm going to take some yellow and I'm just going to pop it in an empty dish. And we want to make sure there's enough paint that we're mixing. I'm going to grab some white. And I'm going to mix that with the yellow. Okay, so when you're happy with your yellow, we're going to paint in our sun. So we're going to fill in our outline that we just drew. And you can be as precise as you can to make sure you're kind of really filling in that outline nice and neatly. And it's so important that you wait for your background colours to dry, just so your colours underneath don't start mixing with your yellow. So when it's nice and dry, you'll have a really lovely bright yellow. Okay, so when you've filled in your sun, I'm going to grab some more yellow that I just mixed. And underneath the sun, I'm going to add a few strokes of yellow to give the impression that we have a really lovely reflection in our water. And you can do this quite delicately, so you don't have to push too hard with your brush. We want really kind of lovely, delicate strokes. So I'm just going to wash my brush in my water. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to the reflection as well. And you can do this kind of layered on top of the yellow, or you can do it in the gaps that you haven't kind of painted. Wherever you want to add it, it's completely up to you, but it's just to add a really lovely highlight to our reflection. Okay, so the last thing we need for our reflection is a tiny bit of light pink. So I'm going to wash off my brush in my water, and we're going to kind of mix a light magenta and add a few nice streaks of that into our reflection. So I'm going to take some magenta and I'm just going to pop that in an empty dish. And I'm going to take quite a lot of white because we want it to be quite a light pink. Okay, so when you're happy with your pink, we're going to do the same again. We're going to add some really lovely, delicate strokes of light pink into our reflection. So I'm just going to wash my brush in my water, and then we can start to draw in our palm trees. So I'm going to take my pencil, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in 2 lines coming up from the bottom of the canvas. So I'm going to draw in my first line, and this is going to be like the trunk of the palm tree. And it's going to be not straight, so slightly kind of diagonal. And I'm going to stop about there. And then for my second line, I'm going to start it from the bottom of the canvas again, but I'm going to have it to the right hand side of the sun. So we're not going to hide the sun, it's just going to be, the sun's going to be kind of peeking through. And this second line that I'm drawing is not going to be as long as the first line. So we're going to have two different sized palm trees just to give the painting a little bit more character. So I'm going to take my small paintbrush and I'm just going to dampen it a little bit. And I'm going to dip into my black. And get quite a lot of black paint on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top of the line and I'm going to paint downwards. So find the top and then we're going to paint down. As I'm bringing my brush downwards, I am pushing a little bit harder. And when we push harder, it kind of widens the line a bit more. So we're kind of starting thin and then we're kind of bringing it out as we reach the bottom. And I'm going to do the same again for my other line. So I'm going to dip back into the black. And I'm going to start at the top. So if your paint goes a little bit streaky, like you can still see the canvas underneath, that's okay. It kind of adds a nice texture to your trunk, so you might want to keep that. Or you can keep dipping into the black paint and kind of cover up all those little gaps. It's completely up to you if you want to add a little bit of texture. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our branches and our leaves for our palm tree. So I'm going to dip into the black paint again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by painting in kind of little branches coming off from our main trunk that we've just painted. And this kind of gives us kind of a guideline where our leaves are going to be and just helps us a little bit more with where we're going to kind of place our leaves and kind of give a general shape to our palm tree. So once you've got some kind of general branches in there, from these branches we're going to add in our leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of little downward strokes, and they're going to kind of curve a little bit. But the idea is to kind of push hard and then lift the brush off. And this is just to make sure that our leaves are kind of not too thick and bulky at the ends, and they're kind of nice and thin. So as you're kind of like almost running out of paint on your brush and there's less and less paint, it kind of gives a really lovely texture where you can still kind of see the canvas coming through. And then other strokes you might want to be kind of bolder and slightly thicker. And also kind of vary the size of your leaves. So some might be quite big, and others might be kind of smaller, more delicate. Whatever you want to do with your palm trees, it's completely up to you. You can really kind of go crazy with the leaves if you want. There we have our palm trees. There is so much more that you can experiment for this painting. You may want to add more trees, or you might want to change the shape of your palm trees. A nice detail could be to add some silhouettes of birds flying in the sky, or perhaps make the sun a little bit bigger to give the impression it hasn't quite set yet. Whatever you would like to experiment with, go for it. And I will leave you to keep painting. I really hope you've enjoyed painting palm trees in the sunset along with me today, and I hope you've tried something new. You're welcome to keep experimenting with the painting. You might want to add some more palm trees. You might even want to add some birds in the sky. It's completely up to you. Have fun with it. Do check out more of our paintings at Prime Pass. We have a whole range of tutorials for you to choose from, so I hope to see you in the next video.